Extra voordeel of extra opties? Bepaal zelf je saloncondities op opel.be of bij je Opel-verdeler via afspraak.
So it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be really hard. And we're gonna have to work at this every day, but I want to do that because I want you. I want all of you, forever, you and me, every day. Will you do something for me? Please? You just picture your life for me? 30 years from now, 40 years from now? What's it look like? Please?
Were you in love with him?
I guess I'll never really know. I just know I felt things I've never felt before. The kind of wrenching feeling. I didn't know what it was. It just tore at my heart. Have you ever felt that way?
I have.
I tried to save him, but I think I was the one who was saved.
When I was younger, I wasn't afraid of anything. I didn't have the slightest fear of dying, no reason for it. I thought that if I died, that's fine with me, anytime at all. But then I met a certain woman and it changed. I started to think that I wanted to survive. For the first time, the idea of death began to scare me.
Hello everyone, very welcome to the stream today. My name is 24Flying and I'm going to bring you guys from Turin, where we are right now, all the way up to Vienna, crossing the Alps. So I'm flying the Toliss A321 today. As you can see, it's all being filled up here in Turin on the ground. But first I am going to go over a small briefing with you guys in order to get a safe flight going, because it's very important to be briefed when you do something in real life. So we try to be as realistic as possible in this simulator. So I'm gonna give you the briefing. Stand by for a sec. So we are... Oh, that's wrong. Okay, let's try this again. So, hello and welcome. First of all, I'm gonna talk about what we are going to be doing today. So our flight will be from Turin in the north of Italy all the way up to Vienna, the capital of Austria. And to make this a bit more convenient for you guys, I am going to try to show the Navigraph route that the route that I have here. Should have set this up properly beforehand, but it's fine, I'm getting there. Hold on for one. Great, now Navigraph wants an update. So while we were waiting for that, I'm going to get back to the starting screen and I'll get back to you when I have everything sorted out as it should be. So, hello, welcome back. I got everything that I need, and right now you're looking at Navigraph charts. It's a useful application that we use to display airport diagrams and approach charts and everything like this, including terminal charts, like we see here. Yeah, correction, like en route charts and maps that we have here, and approach plates. So our routing is coming from Turin, which is, if you look at Europe, situated right there, all the way over to Vienna. Something special about this route, the SimBrief, the tool that I use to calculate those routes and get fueling done, didn't give me any standard instrument departures for the route, or neither did it give me an arrival. So we're just flying straight onto the airways, straight out of the airways into Vienna. It's a short flight, about an hour and 40 minutes is what SimBrief calculates that we will be doing. And we're flying as Austrian Flight 162. We're due to take off in about 7 minutes, but we're gonna be late. It's fine, since I didn't set up the airplane yet and I had some issues with the stream before. Let's see. First of all, we did the route general overview. Now I'm going to discuss the weather, because NOTAMs in the simulator is not really applicable, since there isn't anything happening in real life. So I'll skip over the NOTAMs and I'll continue with weather, the big picture. Significant weather-wise, I don't really have anything except for moderate icing area. For anyone who watched my stream yesterday, because I streamed yesterday coming from Brussels, I think, to Turin as well. So I'm making a continuous route, and I came into Turin, and there was a big moderate icing zone for most of the flight we were flying through. Forecast moderate icing, and that is still here from flight level 150 all the way up to the end of the chart. It is showing me in the Turin area, actually the entirety of Italy almost. So when we're flying in Italy, we'll have to watch out for the icing. Once we cross over into Austria, it should be fine. So wind-wise, we're going to be flying with a mostly crosswind coming from the north, starting to back a little bit towards a northwesterly wind when we get to Innsbruck. And they're quite strong, so we'll see that, but it won't be affecting us like heads or tailwind, not really that big of an effect. Cruising level for the flight is initially 340, then 350 once we cross Delta Echo Tango Sierra Alpha waypoint. That's just the way that SimBrief calculated it. So that's big picture weather. Now, local weather here in Turin is quite nice. It's actually calm wind of 040 knots, 10 kilometers or more visibility, scattered at 6,000 are the clouds, and 5 degrees outside, dew point -1, and QNH 1016. So actually it's quite good weather. The forecast, the TAF, gives me nothing different. Slightly lower clouds at 5,000 feet, and wind could pick up a little up to 5 knots, but that's really not any issue at all. Then the weather in... Let's see, the weather in in Vienna. Did I say Innsbruck before? It's Vienna. We're going to Vienna. Is 31011 knots, 10 kilometers or more. Few clouds at 2,200, scattered 2,400. 2 degrees outside, -3 is the dew point. QNH 1018. Yeah, basically that's it. And then the forecast for Vienna gives me snow showers possible starting today at 12 till tomorrow at 9 a.m. So we could have snow, but it's not happening yet. Maybe those clouds could form into snow. They're not dense enough, so it's not gonna be a big snowstorm. We shouldn't worry about this too much. Yeah, so weather-wise, we're settled. We did the route briefing. I think we're ready to get into the airplane. So welcome aboard. I just realized you weren't hearing anything. Now you are hearing the airplane as well. So welcome aboard this Airbus A321 of Austrian. We are flying Oscar Echo Lima Bravo Delta today, which is actually a real airplane in real life. It's modeled after one of their A321s. And I'm starting to set everything up. So it is complete cold and dark. but it doesn't look cold and dark because it's standards with external power already connected. So this isn't cold and dark, it's an external power already connected setup. So I'm not completely familiar yet, so I'm gonna use X-Checklist to help me remember everything that I have to do. So I'm not following it as a checklist, I'm doing the flow, it's just helping me remember that I did everything correctly. So let's get going. Enough about all of this stuff. We will get our performance data from our SimBrief operational flight plan, which means today we are carrying 217 passengers and we have a zero fuel weight of 71.7 tons. So we're at 71.6 now. Get a little bit more, 71.7 tons on board. Apply these load settings. And fuel for the flight, I did get 45 minutes of extra captain discretion fuel, which gives my block fuel of 9.7. Which is also the maximum fuel you can take, since the weight that we are carrying is limited by our maximum landing weight back in Vienna, since this is rather a short flight. So we have 9.7 annual fuel. The cargo door is not open. No, I don't care. They must have loaded it already, so it's a step that we can skip. Then I'm gonna go over the overhead. So I'm not gonna follow this checklist yet. I'm gonna use it to verify that everything is done correctly. I'm gonna align all IRSs and wait till the on-bat light turns off. Once that turns off, I can do the third and final inertial reference unit. And those are aligning themselves right now. I'm gonna switch on the captain and purser evacuation switch. So standby. The cockpit voice recorder ground mode on. Then up here, test my fire detection and suppression systems. Hydraulic pumps are as required, fuel pumps are as required. Electrics are as required currently, faults are normal. We have more than half full passengers, I think it's more than half, so eco-flow can stay off. It's as required. Anti-icing not applicable yet. Strobe light to auto, nav and logo lights to 1. These stay off. Get the seatbelt sign and the fasten seatbelt sign and non-smoking signs on. Dome lights go to bright and emergency lights armed. It's all as required. These and these are all as required, and then turn on the third communications unit. And then go over the checklist to see if everything is correctly done. Yep, and now I get the lights. The displays of my first officer who is not there, unfortunately. Up to speed. And then we can check the oxygen pressures. Check the hydraulic pressures. And these lights back here. Bizarre. Engine oil quantity. Curious. Is it the lighting? Maybe. I have no idea. Those are as required. Get these cooling the airplane down a bit. And that's all done. Then the QNH here in Turin is 1016. So let's set the standby to 1016. And our standby instrument is showing. Yeah, the RS is not aligned yet, so I don't know if this works. guess it does. But whatever. Then our brakes. Let's check the air pressure. I'm not gonna release the parking brake because I don't want to dismiss all my ground crew yet. That's why I'm doing it like this. But it's fine, it's all in green. Then the airplane knows what date it is, which is also fine. Gear 3 green, and brake fan not required. Get my audio panel on. So, let me explain. We are not currently using any ATC for the flight, so I will be not doing any communication stuff because it's an extra workload. Normally it's the pilot monitoring doing it anyway. I might explain what calls need to be made, but I'm not going to focus on it since we're not on any network, we're not on VATSIM, we're just flying for offline, so for our enjoyment. This is all set. Means that I'm gonna set this up and continue my setup. So we continue for the pressure page. Landing elevation is automatic and our status is normal. And then get out of the status page to get back to the standard. Up on the first officer's side, since he's not there doing his job. It's day, so I'm going to turn all these lights up to maximum that we actually see something in the bright sun here in Italy. This is all as required. And okay. So now we did our initial pre-flight checks, and I'm going to continue by doing our MCDU setup. Yeah, makes sense. I did say it correctly. The setup that we're going to do is programming the flight computers in order that they have the required information to get us guided towards our destination. It's a difficult way to say that we're going to program the autopilot computer. So we'll start with putting up the brightness to max because we want to see what's going on. And then checking that our aircraft is correct. We are flying an A321 today with the CFM 56 engines. Those engines down there are the CFM engines, so that's correct. What we want. Checked that the navigation database is still current, and we're still in cycle 2014 now, I think. Let's check on my sim brief that this is still current. Yeah, it is. So we're flying on AIRAC 2014, it's current and there is no performance penalties entered into the system that we need. We continue to the initial init page, and because we nicely pre-planned our flight through SimBrief and downloaded it into the proper folder, the flight that we are going to do is going to be in here already. So we're going to go down all the way to Lima India Mike Foxtrot, which is Turin, Lima Oscar Whiskey Whiskey, which is Vienna, 01 is the number of the flight plan that we're having today, and I'm going to load that in. It's loaded in. The alternate of our route today is going to be Budapest, I think. Yes, Lima Hotel Bravo Papa, and I'm going to enter this in here. Lima Hotel Bravo Papa, and I'm gonna get that into alternate. That's in there. Flight number, we are Austrian, which is Alpha Uniform Alpha, flight 162. Get that in here. Cost index, SimBrief plan the cost index of 7 for us today. Cruising flight level is initially 340, so I'm going to enter 340. Get that in there. Request the winds should be able to request them here. This doesn't work, unfortunately. I don't know why. Those are requested, and then align the IRS is using the current data. Let's check. They're still all aligning, so it's not going to give me it here yet because we were a bit faster than the system. It's estimated that in 2 minutes, as you can see on my display, it will be finished. But we don't have to wait for that. Now I'm gonna check our flight plan. Normally, when you don't load your flight plan, this is where you would enter it manually, every waypoint or airways that you're gonna use. However, I did get a nice pre-made flight plan from SimBrief, which I set up in there, and I loaded it in here, as you see. So I just have to check that this matches with what I have on my tablet here. So we start in Turin to Ivano, hold Rusil Apted, it's fine. And quickly go through this. I don't have to explain everything since you can't see it anyway. Great, that looks exactly like I'm expecting. So our flight plan did work. The route is correct. Then to start off, we're going to go departure, select runway 36, which is the runway that we're going to use today. Check the winds to be sure, 0402 knots, favoring runway 36 here in Turin. So, as I said before, no SID, no standard instrument departure. So GPS primary came up here, which means our IRSs are aligned. No departure, so no transition, and we go to temporary flight plan and then insert that temporary flight plan. It gives us a discontinuity now, so I'm gonna remove that discontinuity since we are sure that this is what we want to do. And now this flight plan is continuous. Now our arrival data, we're not using any ATC, so whatever I put in here is actually what we're gonna fly. Normally you would enter what you expect to fly, since you never really know what runway you're gonna use, or what approach you're gonna fly, or what arrival they give you. So we're gonna leave it as this is. In Vienna, we are flying the ILS runway 34. And I'm gonna check the runway diagram to see if 34 is actually what we want. SimBrief can give me stuff, but it might not be what we want. Okay, 34 is perfectly fine for us today. It is plenty long enough for our airplane to land on. And winds are 31011, so we definitely want 34. We don't want to land with an 11 knot crosswind if we don't have to. So we have that in here. ILS 34 without the star, and we're gonna go. I'm not sure if it. Let me go check this out. I'm not 100% sure of what is going on here in Vienna. So what I'm darting is that we actually do maybe the star. Okay, so what is this? This is telling me that from Ballard, which is our second to last, is our waypoint before we arrive at in Vienna. I keep saying Innsbruck. So before we get there, I'm gonna try to show you. It wants us to actually fly the Ballad 3 November arrival, and we are gonna do that. So I'm gonna enter Ballad 3 November. However, it's not showing up as an arrival I can add in Navigraph charts, so I can only have the chart up. Yeah, this is exactly what I need. Okay, great. Makes a lot more sense. So Ballad 3 November is via no transition. So no star, but via the Ballad 3 November. It's a strange way to set it up. I've never flown into Vienna, so I didn't know this before. I'm just finding out right now with you guys. So the arrival is also in there. Then we are going to cross-check that our route makes sense in our system. So go to plan mode, activate the constraint button, which gives our constraints on the display. And then step through the flight plan. We can see on the display our flight plan flying itself. And a missed approach. So the entire route is in there, and it looks exactly like I'm expecting it to. So the route is checked. I can go back to our see our depart. We don't have a departure, so I'm just gonna leave it on to auto tune everything that we need, since we're gonna not use it actively as much. Huh, interesting. So this is all fine. Then go to init, but then to the next page, which is the init B page, where we are going to enter our weights. So we'll start, we go back to our widget here, our control system, and we can see that our zero fuel weight is going to be 71.7 as we want. And we're going to input that here, but before I do that, I'm going to put a slash to designate that we want to go to the zero fuel weight CG value now, which is 30.8. 30.8%. Put it in, and it enters it here, both of them. So our block fuel is 9.7 tons. Put in here as well. Then it calculates everything that I need to know for flight times and reserve times, which is a really nice thing about this airplane. So we have plenty of reserves. We are an hour and 23 minutes above our legal limit as well, so that's fine. Then to go to the secondary flight plan, I'm not going to use this today, but just as out of habit, I am going to set this all up. I'm going to copy it at least. I'm not going to set this all up because I'm not going to use it. Then I'm going to go to the performance page, and I need my control tool again. And then we're going to see what kind of takeoff we want to do. So our takeoff flap setting. Going to go through all of them. I'm doubting, not sure what I want. I'm gonna go with flap 2 takeoff, because these speeds, the V speeds are still relatively okay, and we have some flex temperature to have less wear on our engines. So we have this information, then we just need to put it inside our computer, which we do by selecting first that we're gonna go flaps 2 with a trim position of down 0.9, so we want Delta November down 0.9. I put it in here. Then our flex takeoff temperature is 36 degrees. And then we're going to go with V1 is 148. VR is also 148. And V2 or takeoff safety speed is 151. Transition altitude here in Vienna is... we are in Turin, I'm not in Vienna. So transition altitude in Turin is... I'm gonna look on my chart to be sure. (6,000 feet). Yeah, transition altitude is 6,000 feet. So I'm gonna enter 6,000 feet. Thrust reduction and acceleration altitudes and engine out acceleration altitudes are default, and I don't think I'm gonna touch those today because we I don't know everything about it yet, so I'd rather not touch them and trust that they're okay rather than do something wrong. Now this is all entered nicely, so we did do these and we checked all of these. We can continue with the rest of our cockpit preparation. So we don't have a tracking client to start. Now we're going to start our APU to get us some power and most importantly bleed air for when we want to start the engines. So normally when the APU is starting to get ready to start, I use this time to do a pushback setting, but I don't think I'm going to be using pushback today, since we're in a stand where you can just ride straight out, which is pretty nice. By this time the APU flap has opened and I'm going to go start for the APU, check all of the other systems, cockpit lighting as is required, activate my landing system here, get back to arc mode on my displays. We're not using any radio aids for our departure, and I'm gonna go 1016 on the QNH. Our initial climb will be straight up to let's see, normally you don't climb straight up to cruising altitude. However, I don't have ATC here that can tell me when I can climb, and there are pretty big mountains in the area. So I'm going to go straight up to flight level 340. No, 340. There it is. On the first officer side, let's basically copy what we have done on our side. APU is all fired up and available, so I'm gonna turn on APU bleed to get bleed air going through. We get air conditioning started. Before we get the ground power disconnected, I'll make sure that all the doors are closed. Get rid of external power. And okay, before we do our briefings, I'm gonna get rid of all of our trucks. Hide all, because if I had to drive them all away, they're gonna go park right in front of me, and that's not what I want. So our briefing, weather we just discussed before the flight, nothing has changed, and to be sure of that, I'm gonna check. So weather is definitely looking nice, no issues. Runway 36 is where we're gonna take off without any standard instrument departure afterwards. We have let's check 9.7 tons of fuel on board, which is what we need. We're gonna fly a flaps 2 takeoff with speeds of 148 as we run. Rotate at 148 as well, and safety speed V2 is 151. So briefings are completed before start checklist above the line is completed. This time we would contact ATC, which is not applicable for us today. I'm going to assume that we are cleared for our route as we filed it. Just for fun though, I'm going to get a squawk code of 5562. And still on standby, of course. Get my beacon light on, and then we would contact ATC that we want pushback, and they want to start our engines. Actually, we request starts, we don't need pushback. So that's obtained. We are cleared to start our engines, and let's go. Let's start our engines. Is everyone clear? So we would ask ground if everyone is clear, and they would clear us to start our engines. So let's do that. Engine start procedure. Mode select determination start, which is the button here. Then engine page looks normal. And we're going to go master 2 on. We have N2 increasing. When it gets up to about 23, we're going to see that fuel is introduced and we'll have light off. So right about here, fuel is in, the light off, and then N1 starts to increase gently as well. Once N1 gets up to 20%, we can check that our engine is stable. That is 20. We have slightly high temperature here. We would expect to see 400. 40, 60, and our engine is stable. Then we can start number 1. Starting number 1. Number 1 starter valve on. So the starter valve is opened. Pressure drives, bleed pressure from the APU drives the N2 turbine, so the high pressure turbines, high pressure system. Once it gets up to 23, fuel is introduced, and the low pressure turbines, compressors and turbines will also light up, start spinning. That's why we get a percentage on N1 then. Approaching 20 here, 20, 40 and 60, stable engine, and then we could go on our timer. After start checklist, we go APU bleed off, APU master off, and we check our trim. Go to the flight control page. We need down 0.9, so I'll roll the trim wheel down all the way up to 0.9, we can see it here. Engine mode selector can go back to normal. Speed brakes armed in case of a missed approach, and there is no pushback crew to show us anything, so we can do our flight control checks. So the stick that I'm using is right there. As for flight controls, I'm using the Thrustmaster TCA side stick, which is really nice to fly the Airbus. So let's set flaps to 2 for takeoff. Go elevators full forward, full back, neutral, aileron left, right, neutral, rudder left, right, neutral. flight controls free and correct. Okay, continuing before taxi procedure. Weather radar, system 1. Engine mode selector, normal. Auto brakes, max. Takeoff config, checked. Normal. And then we go alert the cabin. Takeoff no blue. So before takeoff checklist above the line is completed. Right now we would request taxi. No ATC is going to tell us where to go. So I'm going to take a look at my airport diagram, which I have right in front of me now. We are parked facing Lima, and we want to take a right turn on Lima, continue all the way up to the end, and hold short of runway 36 at Golf 1. So we're going to do that. We are clear to do that. So before we taxi, I'm going to turn on my nose lights, taxi, runway turn-offs come on, and we can release the parking brake. Give it a little bit of power to get going. Why aren't we moving? Curious. Maybe need a bit more power. Oh. Looked like there was a small issue with... not sure. The airplane or something. So we can start our taxi all the way up to the... I also wants me to do the takeoff checks again. Because I increased the power a bit too much maybe. Okay, whatever, it's not really important, it's a simulator. So for taxiing, I'm using my yaw axis on my TCA side stick in order to use it as a nose wheel tiller, and you see the tiller move when I do the yaw axis movements. It's really, really useful to fly an airliner when you can't really control the airplane on the ground with your rudder pedals like you would in a smaller airplane. So right now this is echo, and I'm going to use that information to see on my chart where I am, and we're almost there. In fact, Golf is straight ahead, Foxtrot is there, Vermont, Golf. Nice old Trijet parked there. Okay, we're rather fast, so I am going to start slowing us down using toe brakes on my Thrustmaster rudder pedals, which are also really, really nice. So everybody holds short here, so I'm going to do it as well. Holding short of the runway, we would contact ATC to tell them that we are here, and we would switch to tower. So let's assume we are cleared for takeoff on runway 36. So I would go runway 36, clear for takeoff, Austrian 162. That's what we are. Then I would release the parking brakes, go over to turn on the strobe lights, nose light to takeoff, and landing lights on. Transponder will go all the way to TARA. And for takeoff in this airplane, I'm going to turn off both packs and switch on the seatbelt sign twice to let our cabin crew know that we are going to take off. Once I'm lined up on the runway, I'm going to reset my chrono. It took 6 minutes to taxi, it's nice to know. And we still have 9.6 tons on board. And our minimum takeoff fuel is 7.1, so we definitely have enough fuel on board to do our takeoff, to fly our route. Actually, more important than to just take off, of course. So we're here, gonna reset my chrono, give it about 50% and 1. Let the engine stabilize. So let's take off. Man flex, SRS, runway, and auto thrust blue. There's 100 knots. V1 and rotate. Positive rate, gear up. Nav mode. Past 400 feet. Okay. After takeoff. Lights as required. Back 1 comes on. Select the climb position. And start our turn. And that's more than 10 seconds, so back 2 can come up. And then we would contact departure. They would clear us, they would tell us that we have radar contact and give us their traffic service. Or radar control in this case, most likely. So approaching speed above the eyebrows. Okay, flaps 1. Speed is second. Check them, flaps 1. There's flaps up. Check flaps up and disarm the speed brakes. So right now I am manually flying and following the flight directors. Once we get it nicely established, I will switch on the autopilot, which is realistic to do even earlier most of the time, but it's never a bad thing to have fly an airplane. In my opinion, it's always nice. So as we're passing 4,500 feet, I do have to pay attention that at 6,000 feet I want to have switched to standard barrel. I don't have to wait till 6,000 feet, but when I get close I will switch that over before we reach 6,000 feet. Even our standard barrel set. We are nicely intercepting our flight path. Alright, we are nicely on our flight path and I'm going to engage autopilot 1. Now the autopilot is flying the airplane. That doesn't mean that I don't have to do anything anymore. So it's very important when the autopilot is actually flying the airplane to check and monitor that the autopilot is doing everything that it's supposed to do. So to have a big picture idea of what's going on, I'm going to increase the range on my display. I have at least part of the route visible. Since the waypoints are quite far apart, I'm gonna set it already up to 80 nautical miles. On my side, weather radar is on, and we are flying closer to terrain and not that high yet. So I'm gonna have my first officer scan for terrain on his display. And select the flight plan page on his display. We are approaching 10,000 feet, which means that we will do some procedures. Passing 10,000 feet now, I'm going to switch off the landing lights, get the passengers out of their seats since it's pretty comfortable, switch off both landing systems here since we don't need those, and select airports on my NG. This gives me a nice overview of what options I might have if something were to go wrong and we need to land quickly. And as always, I'm going to check this with my plugin. But that's fine. Okay, so as we continue our climb, I'm going to turn on some music and then we can enjoy the sound of it. So this turn that we just made is our first turn en route. And it actually means that we are now flying on our route and not just directly towards our route. Weather, we can see some nice clouds here. We can see the beautiful Alps to our north. But since this part of the flight is gonna be pretty boring, I'm gonna be taking a small break. And I will be back once we level off to do some level off procedure, and then I'll probably go again and see you guys when we approach and land at Vienna airport. See you then. Hi there. I am back as we are passing flight level 320 almost, which means that we are almost at our top of climb. Currently we are approaching at pad, you can see on my chart, is about a third of the way to Vienna. So about a third of our flight has been spent climbing. Mostly it's pretty normal, to be honest, for such a short flight at least. So I did turn on my anti-icing whilst I was gone, or at least whilst I was slightly gone. I was still monitoring, of course. But it showed me no ice was detected, so I'm turning those off again, which makes sense. We're not really in visible moisture. And also I did turn on the fasten seatbelt sign, since if you look carefully you can see that it's a little bit bumpy. There's some turbulence. So, as we are approaching our top of climb, I will be performing the checklist that matches with the top of climb checklist, which is just, I think it's just one item, which is we have to switch the TCAS mode from above to below, and I can switch this to 0. So at Mach Alt Star, Alt Cruise. So we did do this item, and you can check that our annunciators show what we expect. Excuse me. So that's all as we expect it to be. This is set. Then I can do a routine fuel check. So we're 6 miles from Renta. At Renta I expect to have 7.4 on board, and I am showing 7.46 on board. So we are still we're still good on our fuel. If we see a negative trend on the fuel, then that might be that might point to a fuel leak or an engine issue, and would suggest it would be very highly recommended to divert in a case like that, because you're not gonna make the airport that you're going to. If you already can see a difference now, it will probably be a very big difference. When you get to the end, you might not have enough for a go around or whatever. So fuel checks are important. Actually, in flight school, that's one of the things we get taught a lot, to do fuel checks. Routinely, it's part of your cruise checks. It's the same as when you're flying a propeller airplane. You want to check that your engine is still running nicely with the mixture that you have set. Yeah, you just want to do a cruise check, that you know where you are, what you are doing, and why you are there, and how the airplane is doing when you're there. Also good to keep situational awareness high, because believe me, this descent is gonna be there before we know it. Look at those nice mountains. I know the X-Plane graphics aren't really the best, but from sorry, from 34,000 feet, where we are right now, they look pretty okay. So we're 160 miles from our top of descent, but since we are to climb 1,000 feet once we get to Detza, the top of descent is gonna change as well, and it's gonna do the calculations itself, thankfully. But we're still a bit bumpy, so I don't think, yeah. Just to be sure, I'm gonna keep everyone in their seats until we get it stabilized. It's a very short flight, so it doesn't really matter that much for the passengers who are not in existence. So on my break, I brought an apple and I'm gonna have a bite quickly off camera, but nothing much is happening anyway, except for we're gonna have to climb in about 40 miles. Looks like 40 miles. Yeah, about 40 miles we're gonna have to climb. So, okay. Hi, I'm back. So, currently, I'm noticing no one is watching the streams yet, which is very, very normal since I only started last week. And this is my third or fourth stream. Fourth. So I'm not really expecting big viewership yet. And, yeah. Just so you know, if anyone watches the video after the stream, if that's you that's watching the video after the stream right now, maybe come check us out. I always try to announce my streams ahead of time, so when you go to the channel page, you'll see when I schedule a stream. I don't know how it's gonna go, but I'm planning on currently doing a lot of streams, maybe one a day if I can. I don't know about weekends. I probably will take the weekend off, but during the week I'll do one a day. I don't know about timing yet. I'll be figuring it out pretty shortly. Currently it's in the afternoon. That's also probably a reason why no one is watching. But if you do have a different feeling about this, please do let me know in the comments of the video, and I will probably change something about it, since I'm only learning and I'm only starting out. And I'm no expert. I just don't know yet if how I'm gonna do this. So if you want to help me out, let me know. In the meantime, we are 24 miles from Detza, and that means that we are gonna prepare to climb in 24 miles to flight level 350. Also, if you want me to fly any other airplanes other than the Airbus, do let me know. I do have a 767 of flight factor and a SSG 747-8. I think that's the airliner that I have. The Zibo 737, I might be able to get that to work. And if you want me to do general aviation flying, I do have a DA62 and the DR401, stuff like that. I can fly those as well. Please do let me know. The reason that I'm flying the Airbus is because it's nice and easy to set up, and I just bought the Thrustmaster controls, the TCA controls, like the side stick and the throttle quadrant, and I'm using them right now, and I really like them and they really work well, especially with the Toliss Airbus that I'm flying right now. So if anyone decides that if anyone thinks that they want to if anyone wants to have something change or have different airplanes be flown in the video or the stream, do let me know. I am very flexible. So we're 10 miles from Detza, flight level 340 at standard set, and our speed is still a very, very normal. Nice glow of the sun on the alpine peaks of Austria. Miles, so I'm gonna set this 350 and I can pull. So we're now in climb and throttle climb mode, thrust climb. And you can see on our ND that the top of climb is really, really close. And our top of descent moved in a bit. So we have Mac, Altstar, Mach, Altstar, and then that will become Alt Cruise. Which it is. We are just under 100 miles away from our top of descent. So just to get everything done in time, I'm going to start briefing myself for the descent. First of all, let's check that the flight plan is showing our arrival as we planned it. So it's ILS 34 via the Ballade 3 November. And it's not a star. Is it Ballade or Ballad? Ballad. It's nice in Vienna to have a Ballad 3 November. So that's in there as we wanted. Radnav. Let's see. So I go to my ILS chart. And I see it's ILS DME written on my chart. So that means that the DME is co-located, so I don't really need to put anything in here yet. However, this is going to be auto-populated. Yeah, so that's going to be auto-populated. That's all fine. I was thinking about something, but I know what it is now. So when I go to the progress page, I can go bearing distance 2, and we're going to go bearing distance to Vienna, which is Lima Oscar Whiskey Whiskey 3-4. So this should give me the runway 3-4 at Vienna bearing distance. So we can see the distance to the runway threshold is 166 miles. We can use this in order to have an idea of our descent profile, what we're going to do. Most of the descent stuff is all pre-calculated by the computer, but in case the computer fails, we want to have a backup. We want to be able to see actually what... Yeah, we want to be able to rely on other stuff as well, which in this case would be radio beacons if our computer fails, and yeah, would be if the GPS fails, we would use radio beacons. Secondary flight plan is not yet here. Okay, I misread something. Doesn't matter. This is all fine. We go check out the descent page. So our descent is managed. The cost index of 7, which we already pre-entered. And then the approach page. I am going to go to the weather website that I have out, which is Aviation Weather Center. It's actually the American official weather briefing website, but they get everything and it's free, so I'm gonna use that. So what is it giving me? QNH of 1018. Yeah, QNH 1018. I enter it in QNH. Temperature 1. Nice and cold. Wind 0. Correction, 32012 knots. /12. Wind has picked up a little. It's gonna be an interesting one. Let's see that. Transition level, I don't know, so let's pick flight level 50 because there is no ATC, and the transition level, unlike the transition altitude, the transition level is decided by air traffic control. So let's pick flight level 50. Then for our approach, so I checked the visibility in Vienna is 10 kilometers or more, and the clouds are at 2,000 view. Which means that we're gonna fly the category 1 approach. I don't know if they have anything else, but that's the Cat 1 approach. I used to just set up my radio altimeter minima in the DH button, so decision height. Apparently that's wrong in an Airbus, I'm not sure if that's the case, but yeah, let's just try to do it the other way then. So I'm gonna use the minimum descent altitude, MDA, as a altitude indication of our minima, and our minima for Cat Charlie aircraft, which we are 794 feet. So 794 feet. The aircraft that I used to fly with have to round up to 800 in this case, but I'm gonna go 794 in here. We're gonna land config full, so the speeds are 151 for the approach, landing at 146. That is fine. The runway in Vienna is nice and long, and we don't want to stop very quickly though, because the airport end is rather at the end of the runway. I'm gonna go select auto brakes low, because that's plenty of stopping power in the runway that we have. Then I go back to the FMC, the go around page. So what we want to set up is go back to the approach plate, and then look at our missed approach. So our missed approach in this case says we have to climb straight ahead to 9.8 DME from Fox Mike Delta. So I might want to put in Fox Mike Delta as well in my RadNav page. So I'm going to go Fox Mike Delta. Oh, it's already there. Perfect. Back to performance, go around. And then turn right to the VOR, climb to 5,000. And the 5,000 is important because in case we have an engine failure after our go around, we'll have to accelerate because we're going to be climbing very slowly, and we're going to only accelerate because it's a level acceleration once we are at our go around, at our missed approach platform altitude. So the maximum altitude, the first altitude that we would level off at, actually at our go around altitude, missed approach altitude. So I'm going to set that in as our engine out acceleration altitude. For all engines operative, it's fine. We have plenty of power to both climb and accelerate and reduce thrust. That's here. Go to the fuel prediction page. See, at Vienna we expect to have 6.1 tons on board, which is plenty of fuel. Secondary flight plan not applicable, and then we go here, check again how far we are. We are 31 miles from our top of descent. So we didn't have that much time to spare because I did this prolonged briefing and I went over everything nicely. But we have 30 miles to actually brief our approach quickly. So we are going to be doing the ILS runway 34 approach in Vienna. The frequencies are auto-tuned inside the ILS, inside the computer correction. Our MSA for the area is 4,700 feet, so that's the lowest altitude, that's the minimum safe altitude, and in this case it's of the southwesterly quadrant of the sector, and it's measured in a radius around the VOR, in this case the Fox Mike Delta VOR. So as long as we're above 4,700 feet, we will be safe from any terrain in the area, which is why our missed approach goes all the way up to 5,000 feet. It's above that. Our minimas are 794, and it's set. RVR required is 550 meters, but technically I'm single pilot IFR, so it would be 800 meters in my case, and we have 10 kilometers of visibility on the ground, so we definitely can do our landing. There is no approach ban, as it's called, and missed approach we will fly the published procedure, which I already explained. So our briefing is completed, and then we can see if we can get our descent done. We will be getting to our altitude and our speed is managed, and let's pretend we're cleared so we can actually start our approach when we get to Ballad. Also, in order to descend, we would need to get clearance, of course, but we also assume that we already have had our clearance and that we can descend whenever we want, which means that we are going to take the calculated descent, which is very efficient compared to a descent where we would be doing it in steps. Coming up 13 miles from Ballad, from our top of descent. Ballad is still 80 miles away. And I'm completely ready. At 10 miles, I will select the altitude that we will be descending to, which in this case, we want 8,000 or above at Ballad, and all of the stuff is in there. Basically, the initial approach fix is... this is strange. There isn't really an initial approach fix. This is the weird setup of this approach again. So in that case, let's set this up to 3,000 feet, which is our platform altitude. And the platform altitude for the ILS is the lowest we will go using our autopilot, and the rest using our descent profile. The rest will be done using the glide slope information. So the autopilot knows the restrictions of the arrival. If not, I'm going to intervene, but let's set just 3,000. We are 2 miles away. I'm gonna pull the altitude button and we are in a descent now. So descent and altitude constriction is there, which is flight level 80 or 8,000 marked on my chart. So our thrust has gone to idle, which means that they are burning as little as they can, but they're not really idle anymore. Huh, interesting. And let's let our cabin crew know that we're going into descent. By the way, I think there is something wrong with my sounds. Let's just check, because I should be getting chimes. I think the 3D sound fading. Is it on now or is it off? I think that's causing me not to hear my PTU when we start the engines, and the chime when we don't. When we push the chime button. Nope, it's not helping. Then I don't know what's going on. So as we're getting closer, I'm gonna increase the range on my ND. And as I actually need to see terrain more than weather, because the weather is nice, I'm gonna put the terrain on my display, and my first officer can monitor the weather conditions. And I'm also gonna go over to constraint mode, because I want to see the constraints on my arrival procedure. So the chart that I have in front of me is the arrival chart. And it is nice. It's a nice way to see where we are going without just relying on the airplane itself. In real life, you wouldn't just rely on your airplane to do what you want. You would also have your own charts on your tablet or on paper, maybe even. Usually it's all on an iPad or a Surface or whatever, because it's more efficient. It weighs less, and you don't need to print anymore. It's cheaper for the airline, and it's very, very useful to do performance calculations and everything as well. So yeah, it makes sense for me to use this as well instead of printing everything manually. As we're passing through 28,000 feet, we're still on our speed. We're slightly above our descent profile, but that's all fine, actually. There is nothing really to worry about. Terrain around the area here has calmed down a bit as well. Although there are still some pretty nice mountains in front of me. Or hills. Okay, so I just got a weather update and it's showing light snow showers now. With a possibility of heavier snow showers with visibility of 800 meters, vertical visibility of 10. So, not really the greatest weather, if this is actually what's happening in the sim. We'll see. Maybe we'll have to go around because the approach that we planned for is definitely not up to minima that can withstand this. Let's take a quick peek at what approach we could do if we were to end up with issues. Okay, if the weather gets this bad that we can't really do a landing on 3-4, we could do a landing on 2-9, which would still be okay for winds. Let's see, winds are now 32012. Would still be okay for winds, but prefer 3-4. But they have an approach up to the ILS goes up to Cat 3 Bravo minima, so that means no decision height, it's an auto land, and you just need 75 meters of runway visual range, so visibility on the runway. Of course, automatic landings in the sim aren't that interesting because I'd rather land myself. Although sometimes it's interesting to see what happens and to know that you can set one up, which in the Airbus isn't all that difficult. You just make sure that your minima are set as you want them, and you select AP2, you will see Cat 3 in the window here. So we are 18 miles from Ballad. And we should be 8,000 or above, which we are. We are at 19,700 feet. As lead set is with standard barrow set. Huh, I'm getting a little tired apparently, I need to yawn. So basically there's not much to say. I'm monitoring the airplane and I'm monitoring that it is performing the way that I'm expecting it to. In real life you would be talking to air traffic control, monitoring air traffic control, and you wouldn't be flying the approach like this without any issues. That rarely ever happens. So in real life there would be a lot more to do. Okay. Okay. I just read what they're actually called. So we're not flying a star. We are flying the Ballad 3 November, runway 34, RNAV transition. And we should expect vectors for base or final when we're on the downwind transition. So it might be interesting to vector myself that we don't have to go all the way around that downwind transition. Interesting. We should expect our base turn at about a 10 to 15 mile final. But I don't know if I really want to change anything because we're gonna have energy for flying the entire thing, so I'm gonna fly the entire thing. If they don't tell me to change anything, why make it any more difficult for myself? Okay, let's do our checklist. Engine mode selectors as required, engine anti-ice. It's cold, there are some clouds, so let's turn that on and get the wing anti-ice on as well. Landing lights are not required yet. Constraint I have. Switch these on. Just because I can check that we have the proper frequency in. Oscar Echo November is the identification, frequency is fine. And the DME shows that we are getting close, but we are not intercepting yet because we're also very, very high. Okay, this is fine. So it's landing lights and QNH that we need to do. So it's a 3-degree glide. I'm gonna try something new. Normally I configure like I did on the smaller airplanes I do fly, and I don't fly an Airbus in real life yet. But I'm gonna try to do it the Airbus way. I've been reading up, and this means that we should enter, we should be at the final approach fix, which is at 7.4 miles, already configured to flap 1, and then every mile we get closer we should do, or every 1,000 feet that we get closer we should do one more step, which in this case it works so we do every mile we get closer. So 7.4 we have flaps 1, then 6.4 we go flaps 2, then 5.4 we go gear down, and then at 4.4 we go flaps full. In this case 4 is our glide slope check for DME, so we're going to be a bit busy by then. Okay, we're passing through 10,000 feet, get these landing lights on. Gonna zoom in one more level to have a nice big picture here. This looks pretty. And I'm completely ready to fly this approach. Are you guys ready to fly this approach? I hope you are, because we are going to. You'll have to follow along. That is 10,000 feet right there. Oh, I'm sorry. We set transition at 5,000. But when we start our descent now, I can technically already switch to the normal, to the QNH, which I'm going to do. Because of course, I'm gonna be very busy in a second. It is correct that I have 1018, yes. Okay. I do have the feeling that we're getting a little bit high. On altitude, at least. So approach checklist is complete. There is no star, so I'm gonna activate the approach phase myself. So we're in approach mode now. Ah, I see what's going on. This is 15 miles from the... Okay. The entire leg, we are now running base at about a 15 miles to the final approach fix. Good to know. And I'm gonna go speed to green dot. Just there. And I am not gonna activate the approach button yet, since we are still in our descent and it's still a constrained descent nicely. So when we get closer to the final approach fix, then I'm gonna do the final the approach button. Get everyone aware of what's going on. Our engine anti-ice and wing anti-ice is selected for the cloud that we're going through. And we are now descending up to down to 4,000. And I'm gonna hold off on the flap until we get to the final approach fix. Because flaps create drag, and drag costs money. So I'm not 100% sure. We are slightly above our glide, above our descent path profile. Do I want to select flaps to correct for it? I think I do. Okay, so speed is checked, flaps 1. It doesn't create that much drag yet, so because it just slats on flaps 1, leading edge flaps with a slop. Okay. Normally we would press the approach button now when we are cleared for the approach, and let's assume that we are cleared for the approach. So approach armed, and then localizer. Cat3 single. Why is it telling me Cat3 single? This doesn't make sense. 3,000 now. We can descend all the way down. Gonna go autopilot 2. Don't have the airport in sight yet. We're coming up on 3,000. Nicely managed by our flight management system. Not much to do for the pilot at this point. Except... Ooh, wait.
2,500.
Check. Normal, yeah, there is terrain around the airport. Okay, so this is false. We're gonna get yeah, this is not false, but we're gonna get lower terrain in a minute. Glide star, which means that the airplane will try to intercept the glide slope. And which also means that we can set up our missed approach altitude of 5,000 feet here. And then at 6.4 I'm going to go flaps 2, lower slightly fast, I'm gonna go speed is checked, flaps 2. There it is. Gear down, flaps 3. Oh. My bad, we weren't at gear speed yet. Flap speed correction. There it is. Flaps 3. Four miles, 1877. We're high, but that's checked. It's the autopilot flying, by the way. I am not like this, so flaps full, and I'm gonna take over manually because we are definitely high on our approach.
1,000.
Checked. Cabin is secure. Lights are as required. Speed brakes are armed. Okay, we're getting low because I wasn't paying attention. Now our engines have nicely spooled up to our final approach power setting with all the drag out normal. Okay, we're on glide and on localizer, so we are nicely stable.
500.
Still stable.
400.
Land is enunciated.
300.
Slightly to the right, correcting.
200. 100. 50. 40. 30, 20, retard. 10, 5,
So that was an acceptable landing apparently. Get reversers out, of course. Reversers idle. Manual brakes. Reversers off. And then we're gonna vacate to the left here. Get our nose wheel steering back. Disarm our speed brakes. Turning off the weather radar. And then go flaps up. Transponder standby. And that was an hour and 12-minute flight, which was not that long. Oh. We are on Delta 3, which I can see. Where the hell is Delta 3? Okay, we need to make a left here. Okay, continue to taxi to the gate. Got the APU on, I can turn this off. Don't need this anymore. Don't need these anymore. And since I don't have working jet bridges here, I am going to nicely find a stand to park. Whiskey 4. Okay, these are stands. But they look like they're cargo stands, I'm not sure. I am going to join the Aer Lingus there and park over there. And almost forgot to start the APU actually. So left here, right here and the left there, that's what I was trying to say. I know the difference. Okay. And it's gonna be right next to the Aer Lingus probably. If that is a spot, if the Air Canada doesn't have that one. Okay, there is a stand right there. Perfect. Gonna switch off engine number 2 and get the lights off for anyone who might be there. And I'm gonna cheat and use the outside here to know where I have to park. Even then I can't. Park on the stop bars. There it is. On the stop bars. Oh. TCAS comes off. APU bleed comes on. Then I can switch number 1 off. And with that one off, all the fuel pumps come off. Open my door. And let everyone out. And let everyone come to my airplane. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining me here in this flight. I'm just gonna show some replays and that will be the end for today. So let's go into the replay menu. There is us. Coming in from far, 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 far away. Should have put it a little closer. Oh yeah, for those guys who noticed it, I did download this plugin from the X-Plane forum on my landing, showing that it was acceptable. I've been struggling with some landings in the X-Plane simulator, but using this tool I hope to be able to identify the issues in my landings and find out how good they actually are, because you don't really feel it. And yeah, it's pretty hard, but acceptable. Apparently. If the tool says it's acceptable, I think it's acceptable. Ooh, the control tower is very far away. I hope they actually can see something. There it is, coming in for the flare. And touching down. Didn't have much room remaining in the touchdown zone. And then the reversers. I took my time with those. They should have been right up there. So that's a good thing to note for the next time. Let's see what my dear passengers would have seen. Oh, those thrust reversers feel like they take for ages to deploy. That can't be right. I did them so much earlier. At that rate, I might as well have not used them. That doesn't make sense. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I don't remember how to get that display back. Doesn't matter. Okay, let's show it from the other side. Oh, by the way, this Austrian livery is so cool. It really has all of the interior stuff and so and so. You can even see Austrian written on the cabin wall there. But not to distract from my landing attempt here in Vienna. See what I can see. So I made some corrections on final to get onto the center line. And there's the landing. Okay. One more that I'd like to try for a view. It's this one. It's the Stefan Drury camera. If you know the YouTuber Stefan Drury, if you watch me, you probably do. He's an Australian guy and he has this Cirrus, and he puts a 360 camera on the end of his wing, so he can in flight. He doesn't do it in flight. In post production, he makes it like move and stuff. You actually see the runway and the part of the airplane, and then when he lands, he moves it back to see the actual landing. Great YouTuber, that guy. So we can actually see, on final approach, we were pretty much on the glide path. On short final. But this is what I experienced in the cockpit at least, is that at the end I was following the flight director, and the flight director let me go high. Look. Straight out of the puppies. Still following the flight director the whole way through. And it makes it it's really tough to flare, because you're still very high. I could have never landed on the 1,000 footers because I only started my flare above them. See? There's 1,000 footers. Still 30 feet in the air. Et voila, it's a touchdown. This view I wasn't... Oh, I'm gonna shut up.
400. 300. 200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 10. 5.
Okay. To be honest, I don't think we need to see any more. This landing was pretty okay. The flight was very nice to do. And I'm very, very happy that I brought you guys along, that you managed to find me and that you managed to see this flight. If you did like what you saw, please do consider liking and maybe even subscribing, since I'm going to be doing a lot more of this stuff. And if you did like it and if you did subscribe or whatever, it would be greatly appreciated to share with maybe 1 or 2 people that you know that might be interested in this as well. And that way we can try to build this community a little and grow a bit and get this content to more people that might want to watch it, because I'm making it anyway. Well, anyway, thank you very much for watching this stream, and I hope you have a pleasant rest of your day. Bye bye.